Mind the gap.
Welcome aboard, commuters. So I'm afraid this is going to be a little bit of a boring video. It's going to be a lot of chat, but I feel it's a video that's necessary. I'm always striving to improve the quality and the interest of my videos, and I wish to inform you of two changes that I'm going to make. One is I'm going to include photos. Now my computer isn't the best computer in the world, and it kind of plays up. Now when I record the footage, I'm always wanting to do it with you. So by that I will start with the unopened video, the unopened magazine, sorry, and I will record me opening it, and I will build it straight out of the packet, so you can hopefully see any issues that I have. And basically my reaction will be hopefully your reaction too. However, sometimes when I'm recording, you may have noticed maybe some lagging. Sometimes the quality isn't so good, I can't get in properly, I can't get the focus right, and that kind of, I wonder if you're left feeling, I can't actually see what she's doing. So what I'm now going to do from issue 7 onwards, I'm going to, once I complete a stage, I'll then take a photo, and then that photo will become part of the video. Then I'll move on to the next stage, and then I'll take a photo, etc, etc, and hopefully then even if there's any problems with the video, then what I can do, the photo will then sort of help to rectify that. So hopefully that's an improvement. So on to the second change, which is going to be, and this is going to be included in all of my part work videos, I'm going to now rate every issue. Now part of the rating is going to be a static system, and part of it is going to be opinion, and I will apologize in advance if my opinion differs from you. However, it is going to be my opinion. Obviously you're always welcome to make comments, but it's going to be a two-part rating. I'm seeing, for example, on Facebook, someone might purchase one particular issue, and they may make the comment, oh, this looks terrible, it's a really bad issue. Now I feel they have the right to say that. They're handing over their money. They should demand value for them when they hand that money over. But equally, a counter reaction is, well, you're buying the complete model, not individual issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my rating system, and I'm going to explain how it works, and I'm going to explain how it's going to follow throughout the series. So what I'm going to do is every rating, it'll have a number which will end up as a percentage, and then I will allocate that percentage to that magazine, and then I will add the totals together to create a percentage for the entire build to date. So for example, if I rated issue 1 at 100%, that obviously the build so far is 100%. Then if issue 2, and I'm making these ratings up at the moment, but if issue 2 was 50%, then that would bring the total to 75%. Then issue 3 might be 75%, and then that would maintain it at, I'm doing these maths in my head, but about 70%, 80%, somewhere around that mark. So what should happen is over time, excuse me, some issues will be better than others. I may find things that I will mark it down on that doesn't necessarily apply to your issue, but hopefully over time we'll have a fair rating system. And by fair I mean that all issues are going to be judged by the same system. So let me just explain the system. There's going to be five areas. Each area will score out of 10 that will give a total of 50 points. That will then be doubled to create a percentage. So the first area is going to be the overall feel, and this is subject to opinion admittedly, but what I mean by that is when I pick the magazine up without even opening it, how do I feel about that magazine? The next one is going to be build time, and this is going to be allocated as 1 point for every 3 minutes of build time. So if the model took, if that particular part took me 3 minutes to build, then that scores 1 point. If it takes 30 minutes or more, that's 10 points. And I feel that's fair because a 25 to 30 minute build time represents better value for money than 3 minutes. So the instructions is the next area that I'm going to rate on. Now, what I mean by this is kind of a reverse rating. The instructions need to be clear and understandable. So I'm going to allocate 10 points, and then I'm going to remove 1 point for every error that I make following those instructions. I don't feel I'm the best builder in the world, but I'm by no means the worst, so I feel that that would be fair. The next area that I'm going to rate on is the number of parts, and it's going to score 1 point for every part that it includes. Now, there's a couple of anomalies where, for example, if you get, I'm trying to think of an example, right, in issue 2, there's a few parts where you get 2 of each part. So, for example, 2P, there's 2 2Bs, there's 2 2Cs, and 2 2Fs, and they will score 1 point each. So, regardless of how many points you get, and also any screws, the first bag of screws will score 1 point because that's a part, but any subsequent screws will score 0, and that will give a total of 10 points. And the last area is problem parts, and this will score 10 points, and then I will remove 1 for any problem parts. So, for example, there's areas where I couldn't put screws in because there was a paint build-up, so I had to scrape the paint out. Maybe the screw holes weren't big enough and I had to do some extra work. Anything like that. There was one where the paint wasn't, the part wasn't completely painted, but it didn't matter because it was on the inside. However, that's a problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the individual parts 1 to 6. Although number 6 hasn't been released yet, it has been edited and ready to upload, and I'll be absolutely honest with you guys, I don't want to have to re-record that whole video. So I'm going to go through each part. So issue 1, we'll start off with the overall feel, and to be honest with you, I couldn't score this any less than a 10. The issue came in a massive cardboard sleeve, although there were a couple of tricks that I realised were happening straight away, such as make it absolutely massive. It drew its attention, so that actually was a good thing. It drew the attention to me. It was $1.99. There were lots of parts enclosed. It really drew me in, so I really couldn't go wrong on that one. Build time, now it was more than 30 minutes to build that. Admittedly, my build time is always going to be longer because I'm doing it on camera, and I'm going fairly slowly so that, you know, when I record, you can see it. So that was a definite 10. The instructions, I had to score 10 because I didn't make any mistakes. I followed the instructions. The instructions were clear enough that there were no mistakes made. Then for parts, there was I scored that one a 10. I'm just flicking through the magazine there now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10. Now I did count the screwdriver as a part, but there were 10 parts. There was 2 bags of, well, there was some screws, and there were 10 parts, so there's 10 out of 10 there. Problems, I couldn't find any issues with any of the parts. They all went together nicely, so that scored a 10. So that gives a total of 50, which obviously is converted to 100%. And obviously that gives a 100% to the build to date. So on to issue 2, and just like issue 1, although it wasn't so big, it actually drew me in. I did enjoy this part. I picked it up. It looked nice. It looked like I wanted to buy it. So I scored a 10 out of 10 for that. The build time, again, I scored 10 because it did take over half an hour to build. Again, like I say, I am building to the camera, which does slow me down. So some people may have done it quicker. Instructions, there were no mistakes made as far as I can remember. So that scores a 10, and the number of parts was sufficient to score a 10. Let me just have a quick check at the parts. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's about 12 different parts there, 12 scoreable parts. So that scores a 10, and there were a couple of problems with it. There was a couple. I think there was a couple of the screw holes had paint build up, and part of the inside of I think it was the wing, it didn't have complete coverage of the paint. So I scored that down a little bit to 8 out of 10. So that scores a total of 48, which brings it is 96%, and that gives the overall average for the build at 98%. Okay, so on to issue 3, and first of all we had the overall feel. Now this scored a little bit lower. You may argue that's unfair, but the reason was I've just had 2 parts that have got lots of metal parts, beautiful pieces, and then suddenly they present to me plastic pieces. So my first impression before opening it was not as good, so I scored that an 8. Now the build time was over 30 minutes, so that scored a 10, and I didn't make any mistakes, so the instructions were nice and clear, scoring a 10. The total number of parts was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 pieces of plastic and a bag of screws. So that just comes in enough to score a 10, and I didn't see any problems with them, so that scored a 10. So it was just the overall feel that let it down. Maybe you'd feel that's unfair, but however, I feel that is fair enough, because obviously if you saw that in a newsagent's shelves, it's got to draw you in enough to pick it up. So that scores a total of 96%, and that brings the average down just a tiny bit to 97% overall on the build. Still a very good score. Okay, so on to issue 4, and the overall feel I felt was a little bit better than issue 3. However, that was maybe marred by the fact that I'd seen kick plates and big massive screws, and obviously maybe I was tainted by other people's opinions on Facebook, but nevertheless I did give it a 9. Now the build time was over 30 minutes, so that scores a 10, maximum scores. And I did actually make one mistake, and I felt the instructions could have pointed that out. So I just knocked the score down to 9. Now the number of parts, I felt this let the side down really badly, and there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total different parts. There was actually 7, but there was 3 bags of screws, so obviously the second 2 bags of screws don't score anything. So this reduced the score down to 5, and there was a problem, which means that it scored a 9, and that brings the score down to 84%, and then the average percentage of the build so far is 94, which admittedly is still very good. Okay, and on to issue 5, and I felt the look of this, it was quite exciting. So I did score it a 9. I mean, all those small metal parts did quite excite me. Now the build time, this was very, very quick, much quicker than the others. So this was only scored a 6. Now the instructions, I did make one mistake, and I felt one area in particular was the differences between 5D and 5E. I was obviously, a bit of common sense says that because they're labeled differently, they might be different parts, but I didn't feel the instructions were clear enough to point this out, so I did feel necessary to knock it down to a 9. And then the part count was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, now again, counting the screwdriver as a part, and I didn't realise this at the time, but it is a completely different screwdriver from issue 1. But there were 2 bags of screws, so that only brings it down to a 9. And there was a problem with the build, so I did rate that as a 9, and that scores just like issue 4, 84%, which does drag the score down overall to 92. Okay, and on to issue 6, and the overall feel was I felt a 9. It was a nice looking issue, more metal parts, and just by looking at it you knew you were going to continue something with issue 5, but maybe this was tainted by a fantastic looking issue 1 and 2, but I only gave it a 9. Now the build time was good, it was much better than issue 5. Lots of complex parts meant that it took a little bit longer to build, so I gave that 10 out of 10. And there was a mistake made by me, so I did only give the instructions a 9. I can't remember off the top of my head where the problem was. Oh yes, it was something to do with fitting. No, I can't remember. Sorry, I did write all of this down before I started making this video, which is why I know it's a 9. Now the part count was quite low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different parts, 3 bags of screws, but maybe that's a little bit unfair because there were lots of duplicate parts. So 6A, 6B, 6C, D all had 2 pieces each, because there's lots of symmetrical parts. However, I'm sticking to my rating system, so that's a 9. There was a problem. There was some paint in one of the holes, and I actually had to completely scrape out, almost losing all of the threads. So there is a slightly better issue than 4 and 5, but not the best issue. So I rated that a total of 88%. So going into issue 7, we have a total build average of 91%, which I feel is actually a very good score. Okay, so yeah, that's the rating system. As I say, issue 7 has already been made, so there will be no photos with that. However, I will be doing a rating for that issue, and that should be out today, which is the same day that I'm releasing this video. I hope you feel that this is fair. I'm going to apply this rating system to all of the part works that I do. Well, all of the part works that build up to something. For example, this Routemaster, each individual issue is useless on its own, but it's the parts that make up the whole build. So yeah, if you feel that there's anything that you think may be unfair, by all means add comments. Oh, and one other change I'm going to make, which I probably should have mentioned at the beginning. Because I'm going to be doing weekly videos. I've stopped my subscription, so I now get the issues weekly. I'm now going to be doing shout outs, so by all means add a comment into the video. Add a comment into the comment section, and I'll make sure you get a shout out in the next video. Okay, take care guys, and I will speak to you again.